Okay, it is 6/4, 2024 and 3:30, and I'm here with.
Shawn Stamback.
And Shawn, what is your occupation?
I guess I'm a fisherman. I'm not a commercial fisherman, I'm a sport fisherman. So I move people. That's my my main occupation, moving people on the water.
And we're here on your boat, and what's its name?
Magic.
Magic.
Yeah.
Awesome. And where were you born?
I was born in Bakersfield, of all places, way out in the desert. And then probably in the 70s, my parents moved over this way. And yeah, so that's how we got over here.
Did you ever come across, the valley to Morro Bay, like vacationing in the summers?
Oh, every weekend. We had a boat that we kept all the way in the back bay, and we would come over here. My dad was addicted to fishing. I mean, I think sometimes I think I have a problem. My dad had a bad problem. He was addicted to it.
Yeah, so it runs in the family, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I guess so. My sister's an avid fisherman too. And matter of fact, she runs this boat sometimes. She's also a captain in the harbor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And can you describe your upbringing? I know you were from Bakersfield, you came up to King City. Was there any fishing you did around there, the lakes or streams or anything like that? Any
I know you're
influence?
going to find this hard to believe, but I have never caught a fish in fresh water.
In all 50 years?
Yep, never.
Wow.
I have fished. I fished in Monterey. I fished up in Alaska, and I fished here, and that's it. Pretty crazy.
That is
Yeah.
that is crazy. And can you describe for me what your earliest memory of fishing was? It was probably with your dad, huh?
Yeah,
Here?
fishing on that boat. I mean, geez, I can remember back when I was like, before I was in kindergarten. But yeah, just going out, we would fish off of, at the time, our boat was slow. So a trip out to the Point Bouchon, like Montana de Oro, that was an all-day affair. That would take us probably an hour, at least an hour or two in the morning to get all the way up there and fish, and then we'd come all the way back. It was an all-day affair. And it is probably at least once or twice a month something happened to the engine on that boat, and it would scare the bejesus out of it. My dad was always band-aid everything back together on the way home, and then like the next time we'd come over on the weekend, my dad's taking the boat apart, fixing everything, put it back together, and then we'd go out fishing again until it broke again. And he just never gave up. But it would always, it wouldn't scare me, but it was distressful, when you're on the boat as a kid and like the boat breaks and you're just like, and at the time, granted, I didn't know how to swim. I didn't learn how to swim till I was in high school, which is crazy. So, you always think the worst, like, well, are we going to sink? Or are we going to like wash up on the beach? But my dad would always come through and, we'd make it back to the harbor.
Did you have to oar, like,
No,
sometimes?
no. My dad was like very, very mechanically inclined, so he could always find a way, and he always carried a lot of extra parts. So, and I do the same thing on my boat. Now on my boat, like, even though like we're passenger vessel, I take people out fishing. I have this whole side of the boat down here is extra parts. And there's a complete toolkit right here to take apart the entire engine. And there's like parts down there that would most likely break if something was gonna break, so. But if something metal broke that was catastrophic to the engine, then yeah, I'm not gonna fix it, I'll get towed in, but you gotta know when to swallow your pride.
Yeah, so it sounds like fishing's like family tradition. Do you have?
Yeah, my grandpa, my uncle, all commercial fishermen. My grandfather, he worked up in Fort Bragg. He had a 1920 or 30s double ender Monterey. It was 30, I think it was 36 feet. It was called the Kimco, and he fished out of Fort Bragg, California, along with my uncle also. He had a boat too. They fished for salmon and albacore. Now they fished before it was regulated. So you could go out and get as much as you want and come in and sell it. And they did that for a lot of years, and that's how my grandfather was able to retire, through fishing.
And do you have children?
Stepchildren, yeah.
Do you expect them to like take over your boat when you're
That's up to them.
retired?
Yeah. Oh, when I retire.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'll ever retire, so when I'm dead. I don't want to stop, but yeah, maybe when I'm retired.
And you've been doing it nonstop, basically, since.
Well, I mean, I don't just do this. So if you live around here, you got to have more than one gig going on. So, I'll tell you about when I first started this boat. This was a dive boat, and my plan was to take out scuba divers because nobody else did it. So during the process, I met some guys. So I got a charter doing some surveys off Diablo Canyon, and they were geological surveys. So you take these divers out, and they would hammer loose rocks, put them into a bag, and then pull them up to the top. So along the way, they came up short a diver. One of the guys got hurt at work, so they asked me if, because I was a diver also, they asked me if I'd like to come in and fill in just for a little bit. And so I went out. I worked at the nuclear power plant as a diver, and after they called me in once, they called me in again and again and again and again, and it went on for 12 years. So I was a commercial diver at the nuclear power plant for almost as long as I was running this boat also, and I'd switch back and forth. So you have to have more than one poker in the fire if you're going to survive around here, because this is I mean, fishing's not something that you do full time. There's as you know, there's a season for it, so you have to find ways to keep yourself busy the other parts of the year.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start doing that diving? Was it at the same time that you started this boat, or was it
no,
after
same
you
time I started this boat. Yeah. I think it was 2009 or 10. And yeah, I started working out there as a commercial diver. And they put me through commercial dive school, everything. And yeah, I worked out there, and it was a great opportunity, hard work. It was a very I don't know what word to call it, but it's a very disciplined work environment. Like everything has to be done a certain way, and not one step can be taken forward unless it's approved by X amount of people, you know. So it was a very, I guess, like, it's a precise work environment, and I like that kind of thing. I like structure, and you know, so. But yeah, it was an interesting job.
So you just finished that up a couple years ago, then?
Yeah, I haven't worked out there for like a year. I wouldn't say I'm done with it, but yeah.
Just whenever they need you, you'll come back in.
Yeah, I kind of grew tired of it, so maybe at some point I might go back out there. But commercial diving is it's a hard job on your body, and it can also be strenuous on your mind too. You know, so you're not doing it's not like scuba diving, looking at flowers and whatnot underwater and seeing fishes swim by. You're focused on one object, and a lot of times the work environment you're going into, it's it's not just a little bit dangerous, it's a whole lot dangerous. So we had like different levels of how dangerous the jobs were, and almost all the jobs that we did were like almost, you know, the first tier.
What kind of danger would that be? Just like
Being
a
around
lot of-
giant impellers that are turning, water sucking in, working in the water while it's sucking in, working around objects that are suspended above your head that could weigh, you know, several hundred pounds or even tons. There were some of the jobs we did where we had to go into small tunnels that are probably 30 feet underwater and crawl up into that tunnel and run a vacuum in there while there's a pump running above your head. Yeah, just
a lot of mechanical danger then.
Yeah, and it's all it's not like you jump in the water and you're like swimming out here. You get into a hole, and when you get into the hole in the floor, that's where you go in at, and that's where you'll come out at. There's no other way to get out. You have to, and you're tethered with a hose, but if something happens, if you panic or whatever, you're not going up to the surface to get out. You'll run into cement. So you have to go back over to the hole that you came. So if there's any kind of emergency, there's only one point of egress. So that's what makes it so dangerous.
Was there any danger from like nature, like sharks or anything like that? Or
No, because like maybe on the outside when we'd work on the outside, you would have to. I think that the most dangerous thing I ever seen was a turtle, but you never know. Like if there's a shark creeping around, if there was, you'd never see it anyways. You're focused on chopping the kelp in front of you, and to get it off the intake screen because it will clog up the intake out there and, you know, cause problems. So now there's really no danger of getting eaten by a shark or anything like that. Most of it's like physical dangers, you know, mechanical, like you said.
Did you ever get bent?
No, but one of my friends did, and then yeah, I don't like to talk about, you know, people's stuff, but yeah, like one of my friends got bent, and it unfortunately like never happened to me. So some people bend easier than other people, and I've done, I don't know if I've done thousands of dives. I don't even count them, but I've done a lot of jumps, and I've never been bent. So, and I've done a lot of stupid stuff. But
just been lucky.
Yeah, I could have one of those body types where you don't get bent as easy as somebody else, or I'm lucky. Yeah. So, knock on wood.
And do you remember your first job in your not commercial, sport fishing? Was it on this boat? Was it with your uncle or?
My first, like my first charter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do remember. So when I first started this, I bought this boat. This boat did not have any of this stuff on it. It had none of this stuff. This thing was like a pickup truck, like a flatbed pickup truck. And it didn't have rails, anything. So I remember my first charter, I got these guys, they were from the valley, and went and picked them up, and they're just like, where do we sit at? I didn't have the seat here, nothing. It was nothing. So you have to learn as you go what you need. And so I remember they sat back there, and I remember one of them even brought a chair, and he put the chair up on the top, and I don't know how he didn't fall off, but and the one thing I do remember is they brought a bunch of booze with them, and yeah, they had a good time. But yeah, it was a fishing charter. But
interesting first experience.
It was, yeah. I was like, and it kind of put like a bad taste in my mouth, to where like let me shut that off. You know, you're kind of questioning it, like, do I really want to do this and deal with that kind of stuff? So like, you have to create standards and let people know what you find acceptable on your boat, because it's your boat, and ultimately, when they're on your boat, you're responsible for them. So it's like, okay, well, do I want guys on here drinking hard liquor and like take the chance of somebody falling off? Or so you have to set the rules, what you allow and what you don't allow. So that was a kind of a big eye opener.
And then you decided to install the rails.
Yeah, well, after a while, like you know, you're like, okay, you know what? We need rails on here. So I got my garage. I made all this stuff. Um, I went to Cuesta College, and I went through their entire welding program. That's how I fabricate all this stuff. If it's on my boat made out of metal, chances are I made it. Um, but yeah, after a while, you're just like, okay, you know what? It'd be nice to have a seat right here. It'd be nice to have these rails. It'd be nice to have some pole holders, whatever. So if I can think it up, I'll make it.
It's cool.
Yeah, everything's homemade, except for these. I can't take credit for those, but all these rails, everything. Yeah, saves me a lot of money knowing how to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and do you find that's kind of the case, like with, like besides that, just like anything, like mechanical, like it's more worth it
Yes,
for
I'm
you
my
to
own
fix it?
mechanic too. I tell people that I'm a boat mechanic that knows how to fish really good. That's essentially what I am.
Seems the case with a lot of the guys, and they just
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to fix it themselves because they don't want.
I don't
they don't have
trust
to pay.
nobody,
Yeah.
because then if it fails out there, okay, so like, let's say you got a guy that comes in, he takes the front off your engine, puts it back together, okay? You don't know what parts he took off and which ones he didn't take off in the process to get off the front of your engine. You don't know if he had to take off the water pump or the alternator or whatever. So you might be going along and you start hearing a bunch of clackling and stuff, and you're like, you'll be thinking in your head, okay, well, what is that noise? You're not going to know because you didn't take it apart and put it back together. Versus if I do it myself, I know exactly what I touched in there, and if there's a small leak or a rattle, I can just go in there and be like, oh, that's the alternator. I didn't tighten it up good enough because I took it off, you know. So that's why, like, I won't let anybody touch my stuff. I have to do it myself, and sometimes it's a curse, because you'll find yourself consumed trying to, you know, fix the smallest oil leak, or you'll get some problem you just can't figure out, and I'll sit and obsess over it until I figure it out. And my wife says I need to let it go and let other people work on it, but I can't. It's my peace of mind, and if it fails out there, at least I know it's my fault. I didn't ask somebody else to do it, and then I'm kicking myself in the butt saying, oh man, why did I do that? You know, because it's embarrassing too. If something happens, it's embarrassing, and people will talk about it. So it's really gives you a incentive to keep a sanitary boat, and make sure you change your oil and, like, you know, do all your other stuff. It's just like having a car, except 5 times worse.
And floating.
Yeah.
And you said this was an old dive boat, right?
It is, yeah.
Did you buy it here in
No, I bought it from down in Channel Islands, Santa Barbara, and this is Bob Hayes' old boat, and it used to be brown, and you can see the original color down there, that brown color. The whole boat used to be that color. Yeah.
So you basically just freshened it, retrofitted it?
Yeah, I adopted it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You didn't do any, did you do any recreational diving, or
Yeah, I've done tons of recreational diving.
like for like fishing, or just recreation?
Recreational, I've never done. I've done like spear fishing, stuff like that. And me and my wife, we've traveled to numerous places and dove. Yeah, like I was obsessed with diving for a long time. That's why, like, when I found the opportunity to work at the power plant, it was like one more thing I could get under my belt, you know. But yeah, diving recreationally was like, it still is a big thing for me and my wife. And we've dove in like a bunch of other countries, and we've traveled all over the place diving. And we would plan our vacations and made sure it involved diving. If I could recommend one thing for anybody to do, is go and take dive lessons and get dive certified, because it will change your life. It really will. One way or another, it'll change your life. It'll change your perspective on the ocean, and kind of gives you an insight of what's going on down there. instead of having to take a guess.
And where was, or top three, I guess, top three places to dive for you personally?
Top three places to dive. So believe it or not, I'm going to say Honduras, Tasmania, and here. These are the best places.
Wow.
And of all these places, and I'm not trying to brag or boost this place up or anything. Of all places, this place has the most sea life of all of them. If I took you out there diving, it would blow your mind on one rock that's underwater how much sea life's there. Like in one little area like this big, there's probably 50 creatures inhabiting that one little area. And they're all like little tiny creatures like that big, but they're all like, you know, living in harmony with each other. And yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It'd blow your mind.
Yeah. And kind of on that topic, you know, just the amount of sea life here. Have you noticed that? You know, I'm not sure. Well, actually, what do you fish for? Do you rockfish?
Rockfish, yeah, yeah.
Have you noticed that their numbers have kind of been going up or down based on both
So this is the thing with
regulation and everything?
Yeah, so this is the thing with like that I've found with rockfish. So I remember when I was younger, we used to think that like rockfish just lived in one area, and they don't. They migrate around. They follow food. Where you want them to be at is not necessarily where they're at. And you know, like for me, I don't have like specific spots that I fish at. I have fishing areas, and because the fish they move around all the time, and they may not be in one area one time. They could be a mile away from where they were, you know, 2 days after you were there. So it's hard to say if they declined or not. I don't know. Like to be truthful with you, I can't go down there and look, so I can't tell you. And I don't know if anyone else could either. But unless you go down there and like physically look and tagged each fish, you don't know. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I do know that like as far as like regulations go, things have went up and down. So I can remember at one point, I remember one time you weren't allowed to catch gopher rockfish. And they're little rockfish like this big. And they're like the freaking cockroach of rockfish. They are everywhere now. So, you know, numbers go up and down. And regulations, they change, and then sometimes they loosen them up, and then they tighten them back, they loosen them up. So I don't know. I'm not an expert at it, so I can't say too much about it. But I know it does affect us. So you have to, if there's regulation changes or whatever, you basically just have to look at it and be like, okay, well, how do I work around this? You know, how do I make my business work with these rules that are in place? That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Roll with the punches.
Are you part of the, like a organization of commercial fishing?
No.
Not commercial, I guess, but is there a recreational organization here?
No. Yeah, there's nothing. And I don't know. I keep to myself a lot, so I like my privacy and quietness when I'm not working.
Understandable.
Yeah. It's like anybody else, you know.
Yeah. And when you got into the business, the rock fishing charter business, what was your biggest challenge in the beginning? Was it maybe like mechanical, or finding the spots, since it's kind of like your first
like that, like, like finding fishing spots and whatnot? All I can say is like you're gonna burn up. It just takes days. It's time on the water. You're gonna burn up a lot of fuel. Like nobody can just, like, you can't just look at a map and be like, okay, well, there's fish here, here, and here. It's all through experimentation, and I've experimented, and I've got my GPS, and I have in my head like rocks that I have named, my own little funky names and stuff, and who knows, if I talked about those to somebody else, they'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? But to me, like, you know, I got my own little spots and whatnot. But yeah, it takes a long time. It takes a while. But that's not the challenge. The challenge is, you know, getting customers and having a boat that's like that you feel like you can trust. Having a piece of equipment that you can get the job done with. So, yeah.
So it's not even like the action of fishing. It's like kind of your.
It's all
shore
like
duty
it's
type.
all one. Yeah, it's all one big conglomerate. Like it all takes time though. You're not just gonna walk in and flick a switch on and be like, well, I'm in the fishing business now. It doesn't work like that. So it takes time, and then you know the longer you're in it, the more people talk about you. Your name gets out there on the internet. And after a while, like people are just calling you, like, you know, they'll call you to do the craziest things. So.
Yeah. And do you kind of going on with your customers?
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of them are like, you know, the weekend warriors, so they call, from like Bakersfield or the Central Valley, or
Some
do you
of them are.
find them like repeat local customers?
No, not a lot of. I mean, there's a few local customers. I try to source my customers from all over the United States, so that way I like to see new faces and meet new people, and give people opportunity to go out and show them what we have here. So
Is that through like social media or like putting ads out, things like that?
yeah. I mean, it's through advertising, trying to target people.
And what are some of your favorite memories? You know, maybe with your boat, with yourself, or maybe with a customer, a favorite group, or something like that. What are some memorable experiences?
One time I took a blind kid out, and so we put the pole in his hand, and I don't think his parents were too sure that this was going to work out. So I took him to a spot where literally anybody could catch a fish. So we took him over there, and believe it or not, like, he was really good at fishing because he's missing his sense to see, so his other senses are enhanced. And one of them is like reflexes and feel. And he turned out like he's a really good fisherman. And then so we got our limits like really quick. And then on the way in, my boat's set up with autopilot, so I programmed in to go back to the harbor, and I went down. I put my arm around him, like, hey man, you want to drive the boat back? And he's like, how am I going to do that? And I'm like, well, you get the steering wheel and I'll tell you which way to turn, and you just drive, and then you can speed it up and slow it down. So boost him up, put him in the chair, put the autopilot on. He didn't know it was on, and he gassed the throttle forward. He drove it all the way back home, and he thought he did it himself. So it was a good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good. It was cool. It was cool to put a smile on his face like that, you know. Plus, it's a big ego booster for him. I'm sure. I hope it helped him.
Yeah.
You know.
Man, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
I thought that
very
was
neat.
awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done lots of charters with kids, and every charter with kids, man, that's like, I love having kids on the boat, and I always let them drive on the way home. That puts the biggest grin on their face. Because I remember when I was a kid, I would always drive back. My dad would let me drive back while he cleaned fish, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I know what made me feel good, so I'm gonna try to do for that kid. And when I put them up there, they're in control of it, man. I'll stand over here, I'll let them have full control. I mean, we're out in the ocean, I'll make sure they're not gonna hit anything, but they can experiment a little bit and get the feel of like, oh, I'm in charge of this thing, you know, and it's a good confidence booster.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I like doing that.
Do you think it may like encourage them to
Maybe.
to get in a boat?
Yeah, that's it. It might give them the bug. It did me, and look what happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Straight out of high school.
And do you think that you know, there are people wanting to get into the industry, and you know, I guess Morro Bay specifically, but on a wider scale, if you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I mean, it's a big world. I mean, there's millions of people. There's got to be people that are interested in getting in this industry. Maybe not just the fishing industry, but just people moving in general, you know, because essentially that's what we are. We're people movers, and but we do it on the water. And yeah, I'm sure there's lots of people that are, you know, interested in that. It's just finding the means to do it for some people is, you know, that's the difficult part. So.
Was price ever a problem for you when you got into it? I know boats
Oh,
can be
yeah.
pretty expensive. And
Oh, heck yeah. I had to finance this thing. And I financed a piece of, well, it wasn't a piece of junk, but this wasn't exactly, it was a pig with lipstick. So my wife thought I was crazy, and I took this thing to the house. Me and my buddy Steve Nicewanger, we took this thing and stripped it all the way down. We ripped all the wiring out of here. The pile of wiring I pulled out here was like this. People would add stuff in and then take it out, but they never took the wires out. So there's all these like wires that don't go anywhere. And there must have been a thing this big. There's a channel that runs underneath your leg right there. And it had like a bundle of wires like this big. And I'm just like, what the heck does all these go to? There's not that much stuff back there. This is impossible. We start pulling wires out and be like, oh, this one doesn't go anywhere. Throw it on the dock. And we just kept doing that and doing that. Pretty soon, we had a big old pile of wires. There was hydraulic hoses in there that weren't used. I mean, it was crazy. But yeah, so anyways, I had to finance this because I couldn't afford it at the time. And I just worked with what I had. And I know how to work with fiberglass pretty good. I know how to weld. And I just like put together my own machine. And yeah.
It's cool, yeah. So like this cabin
No, all that was there. The basic shell was here. It's just all the other stuff that's, you know, a lot of fiberglass work had to be done. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes, you know, it takes a little bit of money, but a lot of it's time and skill.
Did you ever surf?
Oh yeah, too much. Sometimes I wouldn't go to my college classes because I wanted to surf.
Did you ever do like board glassing or shaping or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we'd always, like, if I dinged my board up, I would fix it myself. And yeah, and I still have a ton of surfboards at my house. I still go surfing. Yeah. Every now and then, like every 6 months or so, I'll go out when I have time. That's the thing that sucks, you know. As you get older, life gets in the way, and you stop doing those little things that, like, when you get out there, you're like, man, why am I letting this get in my way? I need to be out here, you know. And the same thing with scuba diving. I'll put scuba diving off and put it off and put it off, and I go out there and I get in the water, and I'm like, why am I letting life get in the way? Like, you have to make time for, you know, leisure. If you don't, your brain will just rot. You become a machine, and it's no fun anymore, you know. So you have to take time, and if it's surfing or whatever you're doing, take time and, you know, give your brain a break.
Kind of switching a little bit topic.
Sure.
Regulation is a big problem that I've heard among the commercial fishermen.
Sure, yeah.
I was wondering if that's the case with you as well.
Well,
the limits and areas, RCAs and MPAs and things like that. Has it limited you in a significant capacity?
I know it cuts down on business. Like, this is a horrible year for us so far. It's very slow. They've cut us back to 2 vermilion rockfish. Before that, it was first it was 10, then we went down to 5, then 4, now 2, and I'm suspecting next year will probably be 0.
Do you remember the years that happened? Was it like in the past 10 years or like over the
last 10 years?
20?
No, it's the last 10 years. Yeah.
So really quick.
Yeah. So I don't want to say too much. I know people that are in the other end of the industry that do what I do. They're in the commercial part of it that do what I do. And so I think this is part of the problem. As recreational fishermen, we tend to go as far as our pocketbook will let us. right? So when you go fishing out there, you know how much fuel your boat's going to use or whatever. You're going to go as far as your pocketbook will let you. Well, when gas gets really expensive, or diesel, guess what's going to happen? The places that are closest to the harbor are going to get impacted the most. People aren't going to go that far. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, the way that the regulations are in place, I don't think that, like, the way they manage them, I don't think it's right. It's not the way it should be done. And they keep moving our depths. So, like, certain part of the year you can fish this deep, and then the other part of the year you have to fish this deep, and then you have to fish in here, and they set it by depth, right? Well,
that seems just arbitrary.
Well, if you set it by depth, that still means that you can take a straight line and go out of Morro Bay and fish. Well, if that's the shortest point between you and the fish, you're going to go straight there, right? If you're on a budget or whatever, the people are going to go wherever the closest fish are. That's just how humans are. We're going to do the easiest. So, and I think, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, instead of regulating it by depth, they should have zones. So, like, certain part of the year you can fish one zone, maybe here in front of Morro Bay, and then 2 months into the year, okay, you guys have picked enough apples out of that orchard, you need to move up to the next one, and then you take a little bit from there.
Like
and then
pastures, like
yes,
grazing.
Yeah, don't do it by depth. If you do it by depth, everybody's just gonna go the shortest distance. But if you force people to go to different zones, then you're spreading the pressure out up and down the coast. The reason I say this is because the commercial fishermen that I know, they'll go out and they'll pull 500, 600, 700 pounds of reds, whatever they're allowed, within a couple hours, and they're fishing in areas that are far away from here. So, you know, when they say that, like, that they're cut us back on vermilions because there's not a lot of them, I think it's because there's not a lot of them right here. The regulations are, I mean, the fishing game knows where we fish. Every day on my iPad that I fish, I have to fill out a fish log, and there's blocks. And they'll ask me, which block did you fish in? 602 or 608, whatever. So they know, okay, there's been in the last 3 days or in the last month, there's been 2,000 people that went to 608, and they were allowed 10 fish. They took 10 vermilions apiece. So how many vermilions is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so they know where all the pressure was. I think if they took the regulations and made us fish like different areas, it would be a lot. It would probably be a less. I don't know if there even is impact, but it would definitely be less impact on the fishery. But like I said, like right now we're limited to 2 reds. The fishing spots that are out front right here, you'll be hard pressed to get a red out there. If you look at the numbers on all the boats, they're coming back, they don't have limits of reds because they're not going far enough. They need to go, like, they got to go to different spots. So I don't know if it's a matter of, like, where they're fishing at right now. I mean, who's to say? In 2 weeks, maybe you go out there and it's just off the hook with reds. You never know. It's the ocean, so it's very unpredictable. But as far, like you said, you want to know if the regulations, like, have they affected me, or if they're tighter, or
have they helped you? Have they, like, harmed you more than helped? Maybe not harmed you, or, like, got in the way, I guess.
I can't say that they've really gotten in the way. I mean, like I said, you have to roll with the punches. So whatever they say you can do, that's what you have to do. I'm not going to stop it. I don't have enough voice. And the sport fishermen here that run all the charter boats, we're not organized. So
do you think organizing would help, or is it just kind of
probably
like
in Southern California they're well organized? So we're not well organized here. So it's a matter of getting organized, I think, and then you could, you know, kind of you could more or less try to at least steer the regulations where you want them to go. You know what I'm saying? Or at least have some voice in it. I mean, if one of the scientists come up with the idea that the vermilion's going to go extinct, you're not going to change their mind that you're not going to go there and argue, hey, they're not going extinct, we still want to fish them. They're just going to be like, nope, you can't fish them. That's just how it is.
Yeah. And do you have, I'm not sure if descenders were mandated for
Yeah.
recreation. Do you have
Yeah.
descenders?
Yeah, we have one right here. That's it. That's a descending device. So this goes into the fish's mouth, and then you lower it down, and it's an upside down hook. This is on your fishing pole right here. So as you're lowering it down, the fish is getting drugged by it. And then I just let them down slowly, and you'll start to feel them move around. When they start moving around, pull it the other way and it'll come undone because it's not barbed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Do you think they work?
Like as
fish
far as what?
survival- Like fish survival rate? Like, do you think they survive?
Like I
coming up?
said, I don't think there's any way to tell. So, as a scuba diver, I'm going to tell you that there's no way in hell that the descending device works because the fish got bent. And are you a diver?
No.
No, but you know what the bends are.
Yeah.
Okay, so if me or you got pulled up from 300 feet and they stuck us here on the boat and then they put you back down, you're going to have damage. No matter what, you're going to have damage. So I don't know if if fish are the same way. Like I said, I'm not a biologist. I catch these things. And I know about their habits, about where they live and when they eat and have babies and stuff like that. But I don't know the anatomy. But I'm sure they get brain damage. I think any animal that has air pockets in it, if you get bent, that's it. And the fish are bent. They call it barotrauma, but it's got the bends. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if to tell you if the fish, if it damages them or not, I don't know. So the only way to tell would be to put it in a controlled environment, lower it down there and leave it there for a week and see if it's, you're not going to tell in 1 hour, like, oh, is the fish okay? Like, may not show up for like a month or something. That's like guys that do saturation diving. They don't find out till like after they stop saturation diving that they have a piece of dead bone or something like that. You don't see the damages until after the fact, So same with fish. I don't know. It's too hard to tell.
And the commercial guys have
Mm-hmm.
have expressed concern about the continuation of the fishing industry here in Morro Bay. Do you
Yeah.
think it's on the flip side for sport fishing? Do you think that it's always going to be a part here?
I don't know. I truly can't tell you. I don't know what the state has in mind. Sometimes I feel that they don't want us to be out there, and then other times I feel like, yeah, they do want us to be out there. I don't know. I think there's politics involved, though, definitely. But yeah, I'm not like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. And to kind of wrap this up, is there anyone else I could talk to in the sport fishing or just like boating
Maybe like,
world? I talked to Brad.
how about Sal O'Brien?
I had a little quick conversation with him, but I didn't get to record it.
Yeah, that's it.
Just Brad and Sal.
Yeah.
Are you guys the only outfits here, or there's a couple only a couple more?
Yeah, there's Verge's Fishing also. You could check them out.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Maybe ask them.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Appreciate you talking with me.
Yeah, no problem.